The distress signal came through at 3 in the morning, ship time. Kang Tae-soo was half asleep in the pilot chair of his cargo freighter, the Wanderer, when the sharp beeping pulled him back to reality. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the screen. The signal was weak, broken, and coming from the outer nebula. He knew that place. Every pilot knew it. Pirates owned those stars. Smart captains stayed away. Tae-soo had been a smart captain for 5 years now, ever since he left Earth's military and started hauling cargo across the galaxy. He had survived by knowing when to fight and when to run. The smart thing was to ignore the signal and keep flying. But the signal was using an old code, a royal code, Valari Empire. Tae-soo sat up straighter. The Valari were one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. They built cities that floated in the clouds. They lived for hundreds of years. They also thought humans were barely worth noticing. To them, Earth was a small rock full of noisy creatures who had only discovered space travel 2 centuries ago. Still, a royal distress signal meant someone important was dying out there. He changed course. The outer nebula was beautiful in a deadly way. Purple and gold clouds of gas stretched across the darkness, hiding rocks and radiation and things that wanted to kill you. Tae-soo flew carefully, his hands steady on the controls. He had learned to fly in Earth's asteroid belt, where one mistake meant death. Compared to that, this nebula was almost peaceful. Almost. He found the wreckage an hour later. 3 Valari warships, torn apart like paper. Their silver hulls, once elegant and proud, now floated in pieces among the stars. Tae-soo had seen battle damage before. This was not a battle. This was a massacre. Korath, he muttered. The Korath were pirates. But calling them pirates was like calling a hurricane a light breeze. They were brutal, organized, and they feared nothing. If they had attacked a Valari royal convoy, they were either very brave or very stupid. Tae-soo scanned the wreckage. Bodies floated in the vacuum. Valari soldiers, their silver skin now pale and frozen. He felt sick but kept scanning. If the Korath had done this, they would not leave survivors. Then he found it, one escape pod, drifting near the largest piece of wreckage. Its power was failing. Life support was at 12%. Someone was still alive. He brought Times, the Wanderer, Times alongside the pod and opened the cargo bay. The pod floated inside, covered in scorch marks and dents. Tae-soo sealed the bay, pressurized it, and climbed down from the cockpit. The pod's door was jammed. He grabbed a metal bar and forced it open. Inside, a woman lay unconscious. She was Valari, obviously. Her skin had that faint silver glow that their people were known for. Her hair was long and dark, spread around her like water. She wore torn robes of deep blue, and blood stained her side where something had cut through her armor. She was also the most beautiful woman Tae-soo had ever seen. He pushed that thought away. Beauty did not matter if she was dead. He checked her pulse, weak but present. He lifted her carefully and carried her to the small medical bay on his ship. It was not much, just a bed and some basic supplies, but it would have to do. For the next 2 hours, Tae-soo worked. He cleaned her wound, stitched it closed with steady hands, and injected her with medicine to fight infection. Valari biology was different from human biology, but not too different. They breathed the same air. Their blood was a different color, but it still carried life through their veins. She did not wake up. Tae-soo was about to return to the cockpit when his sensors screamed a warning. Ships, 3 of them, coming fast. Korath. They must have left scouts behind, waiting to see if anyone came for survivors. And Tae-soo had walked right into their trap. He ran to the cockpit and threw himself into the pilot's seat. The Korath ships were already closing in, their ugly black hulls cutting through the nebula like sharks through water. Attention. Human vessel. A rough voice crackled through his radio. You have something we want. Give us the princess, and we will let you live. Princess. Tesu looked back toward the medical bay where the unconscious woman lay. A princess. He had saved a Valari princess. The Korath wanted to ransom her, probably for enough money to buy a small planet. He could give her to them, walk away, collect whatever finder's fee they offered. His hand moved toward the radio. Then he stopped. He thought about the bodies floating in the wreckage. He thought about how the Korath had slaughtered an entire convoy just to capture one woman. He thought about what they would do to her if he handed her over. No, he said quietly. He turned off the radio and pushed the engines to full power. Asterisk. The Wanderer Times was not a warship. It was a cargo freighter, old and patched together from a dozen different parts. But it was fast, and Tesu knew how to fly. The Korath ships followed, firing weapons that lit up the nebula with red and orange light. Tesu dove into a cloud of gas, using it as cover. The Korath followed, but they were slower, more careful. Humans were not careful. Humans were crazy. Tesu flew toward the dying star at the edge of the nebula. It was collapsing, throwing out waves of radiation and gravity that would crush most ships. The Korath saw where he was going and hesitated. Tesu did not hesitate. He dove into the star's gravity well, using it like a slingshot. Asterisk. The Wanderer Times groaned and shook. Metal screamed. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Tesu held on, his teeth clenched, his body pressed into his seat by forces that would have killed most aliens. But humans came from Earth. Earth, where the gravity was strong and the radiation was high and everything wanted to kill you. Humans evolved on a death world. They were harder to kill than the galaxy realized. The gravity slingshot worked. An asterisk. The Wanderer Times shot out the other side of the star's pull at incredible speed, leaving the Korath far behind. They tried to follow, but one of their ships got too close to the radiation. Its engines failed. It fell into the star and vanished in a flash of light. The other two ships gave up the chase. Tesu sat back in his chair, breathing hard. His hands were shaking. Every bone in his body hurt, but he was alive, and so was the princess. He set a course for Valari space and let the autopilot take over. Then he went back to the medical bay to check on his passenger. She was still unconscious, but her breathing was stronger now. Her wound had stopped bleeding. She would live. Tesu pulled up a chair and sat down beside her bed. He had no idea what he was going to do when she woke up. He had no idea what the Valari would say when a human showed up with their princess. But he had made his choice. He had saved her because she needed saving. That was enough for now. Princess Yuna opened her eyes on the third day. At first, she did not know where she was. The ceiling above her was metal, stained, and old. The air smelled like engine oil and something cooking. This was not her royal ship. This was not the palace. Then the memories came back. The attack, the explosions, her guards dying around her, the escape pod, the darkness. She sat up too quickly, and pain shot through her side. She gasped and looked down. Someone had bandaged her wound. Someone had saved her life. "Easy," a voice said. "You will tear your stitches." She turned and saw a man standing in the doorway. He was human. She could tell immediately by his skin, his eyes, the way he stood. He was tall, with short dark hair and a tired face. He wore simple clothes, stained with grease and what might have been her blood. "Who are you?" she demanded. Her voice was weak, but she forced authority into it. She was a princess. She would not show fear. "Kang Tesu," the man said. He walked over and handed her a cup of water. "Drink. You have been unconscious for 3 days." She wanted to refuse, but her throat was burning. She took the cup and drank. The water was warm and tasted like metal, but it was the best thing she had ever tasted. "Where am I?" she asked. "On my ship, asterisk, the Wanderer asterisk. I found your escape pod in the nebula. Yuna remembered the distress signal she had activated before passing out. She had not expected anyone to answer. She certainly had not expected a human. "The Korath," she said. "They attacked our convoy. My guards, my servants, they all dead," Tesu said simply. "I am sorry. You were the only survivor." The words hit her like a physical blow. She had known, somewhere in her heart, but hearing it made it real. Everyone was gone. Commander Park, who had served her family for 50 years, Lady Hana, who had been her friend since childhood, all of them dead. She felt tears burning in her eyes but refused to let them fall. "Not in front of this human. The Korath chased us," Tesu continued. "I lost them near the dying star. We are on course to Valari space now. Another 4 days." Yuna stared at him. "You fought the Korath? Alone?" "I did not fight them. I ran. Running is smarter." "And the dying star?" "You flew through its gravity field?" Tesu shrugged like it was nothing. It was the only way. Yuna knew that navigating a collapsing star's gravity was considered suicide by Valari pilots. The radiation alone would kill most species. But this human had done it with a cargo ship that looked older than she was. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you save me? The Korath would have paid you." Tesu looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "Because you needed saving." She did not understand. In Valari society, everything was a transaction. You did things for rewards, for status, for power. No one did anything for nothing. "I owe you a debt," she said carefully. "By the laws of my people, I am bound to repay you. I do not want payment." "That is not how it works. A life debt must be honored." Tesu sighed. "Then honor it later. Right now, you need to rest and heal. Worry about debts when you are home." He turned and walked out of the medical bay, leaving Yuna alone with her confusion and her grief. Over the next 4 days, Yuna learned about her rescuer. Tesu was not friendly, exactly. He was quiet, practical, and often blunt to the point of rudeness. He did not bow when he spoke to her. He did not use her titles. He called her Yuna like she was any ordinary person. At first, this made her angry. She was the daughter of Emperor Day One, heir to one of the oldest empires in the galaxy. She deserved respect, but as the days passed, something strange happened. She began to like it. No one had ever treated her like a normal person before. Her whole life, she had been surrounded by servants who agreed with everything she said, by nobles who only cared about her power, by family members who saw her as a political tool. Tesu did not care about any of that. He argued with her when he thought she was wrong. He laughed at her jokes like they were actually funny, not because she was royal. She started spending time in the cockpit, watching him fly. He was good, better than good. He moved through asteroid fields and radiation storms with a calm confidence that impressed her. "Where did you learn to pilot like this?" she asked one evening. "Earth's military," he said. "I spent 5 years flying fighters in the asteroid belt. Lost a lot of friends there. Learned to survive." "Why did you leave?" He was quiet for a moment. "I was tired of fighting for people who did not care if I lived or died. So I bought this ship and started flying for myself." Yuna understood that feeling more than she wanted to admit. On the 3rd day, they encountered a Korath patrol. 2 ships blocking the path to Valari space. Yuna felt fear rise in her chest, but Tesu just smiled. "Watch this," he said. He opened a communication channel. "Korath vessels, this is the freighter times Wanderer Asterisk. I am carrying medical supplies to the outer colonies. Please let me pass." "We are searching for a Valari princess," the Korath captain replied. "Submit to inspection." "A princess on this piece of junk?" Tesu laughed. It sounded completely genuine. "If I had a princess, I would be flying something much nicer. Check your sensors. I am just a cargo hauler." There was a long pause. Yuna held her breath. "Move along, human," the Korath captain said finally. "But if we find out you lied, we will hunt you to the edge of the galaxy." "Understood. Safe travels." The Korath ships moved aside, and times the Wanderer times flew past them into open space. Yuna stared at Taesu. You lied to them. Yes. They could have scanned the ship. They would have found me. They could have, but most species do not think humans are smart enough to lie well. He grinned. That is our advantage. Everyone underestimates us. That night, Yuna began writing in her personal journal. She had always been a scholar at heart, more interested in books than politics. Now, she found herself writing about humans, about Taesu. They came from a planet that tried to kill them every day, she wrote. Earthquakes, storms, radiation, predators. They evolved to survive the impossible. And they carry that survival instinct with them into the stars. They do not know when to stop. They do not know how to give up. She looked at those words for a long time. Maybe, she thought, that was not such a bad thing. On the fourth day, they arrived at the edge of Valari space. Yuna could see the beacon lights of her people's border stations flashing in the distance like stars. I will take you to the nearest station, Taesu said. From there, you can contact your family. No, Yuna said, you will take me to the capital. To my father. I do not think that is a good idea. Your people do not exactly welcome humans. You saved my life. You will be rewarded properly. She paused, and I want my father to meet you. Taesu looked at her with an expression she could not read. Why? Because he should see that humans are not what we think they are. Taesu was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded and changed course for the Valari capital world. Neither of them knew what was waiting for them there. The Valari capital world was called Saren. From space, it looked like a jewel. Cities of crystal and silver floated above the clouds. Rivers of light connected them like glowing threads. It was the most beautiful thing Taesu had ever seen. It was also the most terrifying. As soon as the Wanderer times crossed into capital space, Valari warships surrounded them. 12 of them, sleek and deadly. Their weapons pointed directly at Taesu's battered freighter. Human vessel, a cold voice commanded through the radio. You are carrying Princess Yuna of House Valari. Land at the coordinates we are sending. Any deviation will result in your destruction. Taesu looked at Yuna. Friendly welcome. They are protecting me, she said, but she did not look happy about it. He followed the coordinates to a landing pad on the largest floating city. The moment the ship touched down, soldiers rushed toward them. They were tall, silver-skinned, wearing armor that shimmered like water. Their weapons were pointed at the ship's door. Maybe I should stay inside, Taesu muttered. No, Yuna said firmly. You come with me. You saved my life. They will not harm you. She sounded confident. Taesu was not so sure. They walked down the ramp together. The soldiers immediately surrounded Yuna, checking her for injuries, asking questions in rapid Valari. She answered calmly, gesturing toward Taesu. 2 soldiers grabbed Taesu's arms. Hey! He protested. He is the human who rescued me, Yuna said sharply. Release him. The soldiers hesitated but obeyed. They did not apologize. They were taken through the city in a floating transport. Taesu stared out the window at buildings that seemed to be made of light. Everything was elegant, perfect, beautiful. He felt like a stain on a white cloth. The Imperial Palace was the largest structure on the planet. It rose from the clouds like a mountain made of crystal. Inside, the halls were vast and filled with nobles in shimmering robes. They all stopped to stare as Yuna passed, and they all looked at Taesu with disgust. He was used to aliens looking down on humans, but this was different. These looks were not just scorn, they were hatred. Finally, they arrived at the throne hall. It was enormous, with pillars of silver reaching up toward a ceiling that seemed to show the actual stars. At the far end, on a throne of carved crystal, sat a man who could only be the emperor. Day 1, ruler of the Valari Empire, was old by human standards but still looked powerful. His silver skin was darker than Yuna's, lined with age but not weakness. His eyes were gold, and they watched Tae-Soo the way a predator watches prey. Yuna walked forward and knelt before her father. "Father, I have returned." "So I see," the emperor said. His voice was deep, calm, and cold. "I was told you were dead, killed with your entire convoy." "I nearly was, but this man saved me." All eyes in the room turned to Tae-Soo. He forced himself to stand straight, though every instinct told him to run. "A human?" the emperor said. The word sounded like an insult. "Approach?" Tae-Soo walked forward. He did not kneel. He was not Valari, and he would not pretend to be. "You saved my daughter's life," Daewon said. "How?" "I found her escape pod and brought her aboard my ship, treated her wounds, flew away from the Korath. The Korath are not easy to escape. You must be skilled." "I am lucky," Tae-Soo said. A murmur ran through the court. No one spoke so casually to the emperor, but Daewon did not seem angry. He seemed interested. "I have reviewed the recordings from my daughter's escape pod," he said. "I watched you navigate a collapsing star. I saw you fight off a boarding party with nothing but a metal bar and a fire extinguisher. I observed you perform surgery on my daughter with no formal training." Tae-Soo said nothing. He had not known the pod was recording. "You are not lucky," the emperor continued. "You are something else, something I have not seen in a long time." He paused. "A survivor." The court was silent. By Valari law, when someone saves a life of royal blood, a debt is created, a debt that cannot be paid with money or gifts. Daewon stood from his throne. Such a debt demands a bond of blood. Tae-Soo did not understand. He looked at Yuna, but she had gone pale. "Father," she said, her voice shaking, "you cannot mean—" "You will marry Princess Yuna," the emperor announced. The court exploded into chaos. Nobles shouted in outrage. Someone screamed that it was an insult to their entire species. A young man near the front, wearing the finest robes Tae-Soo had seen, drew a ceremonial blade and stepped forward. "This is madness," the young man shouted. "You would marry my sister to this creature? This animal?" "Silence, Hyunsuk," the emperor said calmly. "I will not be silent. The bloodline of House Valari will not be polluted by human filth." Tae-Soo finally understood. The young man was Yuna's brother, Prince Hyunsuk, and he wanted Tae-Soo dead. "You cannot do this," Yuna said to her father. "I refuse." "You do not have that choice," Daewon replied. "The law is clear." Tae-Soo started laughing. He could not help it. The situation was so absurd that laughing was the only response that made sense. Everyone stared at him. "This is a joke, right?" he said. "Some kind of Valari tradition? Scare the human, see if he runs?" "It is not a joke," the emperor said. The laughter died in Tae-Soo's throat. "You want me to marry your daughter, a princess of the Valari Empire. Me, a cargo pilot from Earth." "Yes." "Why?" Daewon walked down from his throne and stopped in front of Tae-Soo. Up close, the emperor was even more intimidating. His gold eyes seemed to look right through Tae-Soo, seeing everything he was. "My empire is dying," Daewon said quietly, so only Tae-Soo could hear. "My nobles are weak. My enemies grow stronger. I need something new, someone who will not break when the storm comes." He paused. "I watched the recordings many times. You should have died a dozen ways, but you did not. You survived. That is what I need. What we need? I am just a human," Tae-Soo said. "Your people hate us." "Yes, they do, and that is exactly why this matters." Daewon turned and walked back to his throne. "The wedding will take place in one lunar cycle. You will remain in the palace as an honored guest." Guards stepped forward to escort Tae-Soo away. "Wait," he said. "I did not agree to this." The emperor smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You saved a princess's life. Now you will share it." Tae-Soo was taken to a room in the palace. It was large and beautiful and felt exactly like a prison. Guards stood outside his door, his ship was impounded, his communication equipment was taken. He sat on the bed and stared at the ceiling. 1 month ago, he was a simple cargo pilot. Now, he was going to marry an alien princess. He had no idea how he was going to get out of this, or if he even wanted to. The first week in the palace was the loneliest of Taesu's life. Guards followed him everywhere. Servants brought him food, but never spoke. Nobles walked past him like he was invisible, or worse, like he was dirt on their perfect floors. He tried to contact Earth. Commander Han Su-bin had been his friend in the military, and she still worked for Earth's defense fleet. If anyone could help him, it was her. The palace gave him access to a communication terminal, but every message was monitored. When he finally reached Su-bin, her face appeared on the screen, looking worried. Tae-su, I heard what happened. The news is everywhere. A human marrying a Valari princess. I need help getting out of here, he said quietly. Su-bin shook her head. I talked to command. They will not interfere. This marriage is too politically valuable. Earth has been trying to build relations with the Valari for decades. They see you as an opportunity. So they are going to let them force me into marriage? I am sorry. My hands are tied. She paused. Maybe it will not be so bad. She is a princess, after all. The call ended, and Tae-su sat in the dark for a long time. He was truly alone. That night, someone knocked on his door. When he opened it, Princess Yuna stood there, wrapped in a dark cloak to hide her identity. We need to talk, she said. She slipped inside before he could respond. Her eyes, which had been silver during their journey, were now a deep blue. He had learned that Valari eyes changed color with their emotions. Blue meant sadness or worry. I do not want this marriage any more than you do, she said. My father is using us both for his own plans. Then help me escape. I cannot. If you run, my father will see it as an insult. He will send hunters after you. You would never make it back to Earth. Tae-su sat down heavily on the bed. So what do we do? Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she said, we work together. Publicly, we follow my father's orders. Privately, we look for another way out. There are laws, old traditions, loopholes. I know the court better than anyone. If there is a way to end this marriage honorably, I will find it. And if you cannot find one, she did not answer. Fine, Tae-su said, but I need something in return. If I am going to survive this court, I need to understand it. Teach me your customs, your politics, your rules. I do not want to accidentally insult someone and get myself killed. Yuna almost smiled. That is actually a reasonable request. Their lessons began the next day. Yuna came to his room every afternoon, bringing books and data tablets. She taught him the history of the Valari Empire, the complex web of noble houses, the rituals and ceremonies he would need to know. In return, Tae-su told her about humanity. He described Earth's oceans and mountains, its crowded cities and empty deserts. He explained human history, how they had fought each other for thousands of years before finally reaching the stars. Your species is so violent, Yuna observed one day. We are, Tae-su agreed, but we are also stubborn. We do not give up. When everything falls apart, we rebuild. When enemies try to destroy us, we survive. That sounds exhausting. It is, but it made us strong. Days turned into weeks. The wedding grew closer, and something strange began to happen. Tae-su started to look forward to Yuna's visits. She was different from what he had expected. Behind the royal mask, she was curious, intelligent, and surprisingly funny. She laughed at his jokes about human food. She asked endless questions about Earth's animals. She admitted that she had always wanted to be a scholar, not a princess. Then why did you not leave? He asked one evening. Where would I go? My blood makes me valuable. Every noble house wants to marry their sons to me. Running away would only cause problems for my family. She paused. At least with you, I know you do not want my power. I do not want any of this. I know. That is why I trust you." The words hung in the air between them. Something shifted, though neither of them acknowledged it. A few days later, Taesu was invited to his first official court event, a formal banquet to celebrate the engagement. He wore Valari clothes for the first time, dark blue robes that felt strange against his skin. The banquet hall was filled with nobles, who all watched him with cold eyes. Prince Hyunsuk sat at the high table, glaring with open hatred. Taesu ignored him and took his assigned seat. The food was beautiful, elegant arrangements of things he could not identify. He was careful to copy Yuna's movements, picking up the right utensils, following the proper rituals. Then he took a drink from his glass. The poison hit immediately. His throat burned, his stomach cramped, his vision blurred. He dropped the glass, and it shattered on the floor. "The human is ill!" someone shouted. There was laughter in the crowd. Taesu fell off his chair, his body convulsing. Guards rushed toward him, but they moved slowly, as if they wanted to see what would happen. Through his blurry vision, he saw Yuna's face. She was terrified. Then something strange happened. His body fought back. Humans had evolved eating poisonous plants and spoiled food. Their livers were powerful, their immune systems aggressive. The poison that would have killed a Valari in seconds only made Taesu sick. Very, very sick. He vomited violently across the floor. His body shook and sweated. For an hour, he felt like he was dying. Then it stopped. He stood up, pale and shaking, in the middle of the horrified court. His legs were weak, but he forced himself to walk back to his seat. "Sorry," he said, his voice rough. "Something did not agree with me." He picked up a new glass and drank deeply. The court was silent. Prince Hyunsok's face had gone from satisfied to shocked. The nobles whispered among themselves. The human had survived. Later, in her private chambers, Yuna examined the broken glass. "This was Valari flower extract. It is deadly to our people. Someone tried to murder you." "I know. You need to be more careful. Taste everything before you eat. Never drink from a glass you did not see poured." Taesu nodded, but he was thinking about something else. Someone at the court wanted him dead badly enough to try poison, and when that failed, they would try something else. He looked at Yuna. Her eyes were green now. Green, he had learned, meant anger. "Who would do this?" he asked. "My brother has never hidden his hatred. But he is not the only one. Many nobles see you as an insult to our species." She paused. "I will try to find out who is responsible." "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet." Her voice was hard. "If they try again, you might not survive." Taesu smiled grimly. "Then I will just have to keep being hard to kill." That night, he lay awake in his room, staring at the ceiling. He had almost died today. Someone in this palace wanted him dead. But he had also realized something else. When he was lying on the floor, poisoned and dying, the thing he regretted most was not escaping. It was not getting to know Yuna better. That scared him more than the poison ever could. After the poisoning, the assassination attempts came faster. The second attempt happened during a royal hunt. Noble families rode elegant flying creatures through the crystal forests outside the capital. Taesu was given a mount that had been secretly drugged. When it suddenly went wild, bucking and spinning in the air, most riders would have fallen to their death. Taesu had trained on Earth's military dropships, which were famous for malfunctioning at the worst moments. He held on with his legs, grabbed the creature's neck, and forced it to land through pure stubbornness. He hit the ground hard, but walked away. The third attempt was a rigged shuttle. The navigation system was programmed to fly into a mountain. Taesu noticed the wrong heading, overrode the computer, and landed manually in a field of crystal flowers. The fourth attempt was a duel. A noble named Lord Yongjun publicly insulted Taesu's honor at a court gathering. By Valari law, Taesu had to accept the challenge or be marked as a coward forever. You do not have to fight him, Yuna said the night before the duel. We can find another way. If I run from this fight, they will never stop coming for me. I need to show them that humans are not prey. Yongjun is one of the best swordsmen in the Empire. He has killed dozens in duels. Then I will have to be faster. The duel took place in the Grand Arena, an ancient amphitheater where Valari had settled disputes for thousands of years. The stands were packed with nobles who had come to watch the human die. Taesu stood in the center of the arena, holding a blade he had practiced with for only 2 weeks. Lord Yongjun stood opposite him, looking confident and cruel. When I kill you, Yongjun said quietly, I will be rewarded beyond measure. Who sent you? Taesu asked. Yongjun just smiled. The fight began. Yongjun was fast, faster than any human could match. His blade moved like lightning, cutting through the air in deadly arcs. Taesu was on the defensive immediately, blocking and dodging, taking small cuts that opened lines of red across his arms and chest. The crowd cheered for Valari blood, but Taesu did not fall. He kept moving, kept fighting, kept refusing to die. Every time Yongjun thought he had landed a killing blow, Taesu was somewhere else, still standing, still breathing. Minutes passed. Yongjun began to sweat. His movements became slightly slower, slightly less precise. He had expected a quick kill. Instead, he was fighting an endurance battle against a species that evolved to run for hours under a burning sun. Humans were not fast. Humans were not strong. But humans could keep going when everything else had stopped. Taesu waited for his moment. It came when Yongjun overextended on a thrust, his confidence making him careless. Taesu stepped inside the blade's arc, grabbed Yongjun's arm, and twisted. The noble's blade clattered to the ground. Taesu's own blade pressed against Yongjun's throat. The arena went silent. Yield, Taesu said. You cannot kill me, Yongjun spat. I am a lord of the empire. You are right. I cannot. Taesu stepped back and lowered his blade. But I can beat you. And everyone here saw it. He turned and walked out of the arena, leaving Yongjun on his knees in the dust. The whispers started that same day. The human could not be killed. The human had defeated one of their best warriors. The human was something new, something dangerous, something worthy of fear. Taesu did not care about the whispers. He cared about the woman waiting for him in the palace. Yuna met him in the medical bay, where a servant was cleaning his wounds. Her eyes were a swirling mix of colors. Silver for worry, green for anger, and something else he could not identify. You could have died, she said, but I did not. That is not the point. She dismissed the servant with a wave and took over cleaning his wounds herself. Her hands were gentle, careful. Every time you survive, they will just try harder. Poison, accidents, duels. Eventually, something will work. Then I will keep surviving until they run out of ideas. This is not a joke, Taesu. It was the first time she had used his name without his family title. Something in her voice made him look up. Her eyes had settled on a color he had never seen before. A soft gold, almost like her father's. What does gold mean? He asked quietly. She pulled her hands back. It means nothing. Yuna. She stood and walked to the window. Outside, the crystal city glittered in the sunlight. She was silent for a long time. Gold means love, she finally said, or something close to it. Taesu did not know what to say. He had spent weeks trying to find a way out of this marriage. He had told himself that Yuna was just an ally, a partner in survival. But that was a lie. He stood and walked to stand beside her. Their reflections looked back at them from the glass. A human and a Valari princess. Two people who should never have met. On Earth, he said slowly, we have a saying, the heart wants what it wants. And what does your heart want? He turned to look at her. She was beautiful, yes, but that was not why he had fallen for her. It was her courage, her kindness, the way she laughed at his stupid jokes, the way she treated him like a person instead of a political problem. "I think you know," he said. She did not respond with words. She just took his hand and held it, her silver fingers wrapped around his brown ones. They stood like that until the sun set. The next morning, everything fell apart. Prince Hyunsuk burst into the emperor's throne room with guards at his back. In his hands, he held a data tablet. "Father," he announced loudly, "I have proof that the human is a spy." The court fell silent. "He has been communicating with Earth's military, Commander Han Subin of their defense fleet. They are using him to infiltrate our family. This marriage is a trap." He played recordings of Tae-Soo's conversations with Subin. They were edited, twisted, taken out of context, but they sounded damning. "The human must be executed," Hyunsuk declared, "before he can complete his mission." Guards moved toward Tae-Soo. He did not resist. Fighting would only make things worse. But Yuna stepped forward. "I challenge this accusation," she said, her voice clear and strong. "The evidence is false. I demand a trial by combat." The court gasped. A trial by combat was an ancient right rarely invoked. The accuser had to fight the accused. If the accused won, they were proven innocent. Prince Hyunsuk smiled. "You would let this animal fight me? Very well, I accept." He thought he had won. He was one of the best warriors in the Empire, trained since birth to fight. But he had never fought a human before. As the guards led Tae-Soo away to prepare for the trial, he caught Yuna's eye. "Why?" he asked. Her eyes were gold again, pure, brilliant gold. "Because I choose you," she said. The trial by combat was set for the next day. The ancient arena beneath the palace was opened for the first time in 50 years. Every noble family sent representatives. Every screen on Saren broadcast the event live. Even Earth's news networks picked up the story. A human was going to fight a Valari prince for the right to live. Tae-Soo spent his last night in a cold cell beneath the arena. They gave him basic food and water. A servant brought his armor, plain and simple compared to what Hyunsuk would wear. His blade was standard issue. Nothing special. He was going to fight the prince of an empire with nothing but his skills and his will to survive. The cell door opened, and Yuna slipped inside. The guards pretended not to see. "You should not be here," Tae-Soo said. "I do not care what I should do." She sat beside him on the hard bench. "How are you feeling?" "Honestly, scared." "Good. Fear will keep you sharp." She reached into her robes and pulled out a small object. A stone, dark red, smooth as glass. She pressed it into his palm. "This was my mother's," she said. "She died when I was young. I have carried it ever since. I cannot take this." "You are not taking it. You are borrowing it. You will return it to me tomorrow after you win." Tae-Soo looked at the stone. It was warm in his hand, like it carried some of Yuna's heat. "Your brother is going to try to kill me," he said. "I know. He might succeed. He will not." Her eyes were gold, steady and certain. "You are human. You do not know how to die." She kissed him then. It was quick, soft, unexpected. Before he could respond, she was gone, leaving only the scent of flowers and the warmth of the stone in his hand. Tae-Soo slept with the stone pressed against his heart. The next morning, the arena was full. Thousands of Valari filled the ancient stands, their silver faces looking down at the fighting pit. Screens floated in the air, projecting the scene to billions across the empire. Prince Hyunsuk entered first. He wore combat armor that cost more than times the Wanderer asterisk. It shimmered with protective energy fields. His blade was an ancient weapon, passed down through generations of royalty. He looked like a god of war. Tae-Soo entered second. His armor was dull metal. His blade was ordinary steel. He looked like what he was, a cargo pilot from a small planet far from home. Emperor Day-One stood in the royal box, Yuna at his side. His face showed nothing. "This trial will determine the truth," the emperor announced. If the human wins, he is innocent, and the accusations against him are false. If Prince Hyunsuk wins, the human will be executed, and his crimes will be recorded in our histories. The crowd roared. Tae-soo and Hyunsuk faced each other in the center of the arena. Up close, the prince's hatred was almost physical. I am going to enjoy this, Hyunsuk said. When I am done, there will not be enough left of you to bury. You talk too much, Tae-soo replied. The signal sounded. The fight began. Hyunsuk was everything Yongjun had been, and more. Faster, stronger, better equipped. His blade moved so quickly that Tae-soo could barely see it. Within the first 30 seconds, Tae-soo was bleeding from 3 new wounds. The crowd cheered. Tae-soo fell back, defending desperately. He could not match Hyunsuk's speed. He could not match his skill. But he could do something the prince could not. He could take punishment. Humans had evolved on a planet where everything hurt them. They had developed pain tolerance that other species found horrifying. They could keep fighting with injuries that would make a Valari collapse. Tae-soo let Hyunsuk hit him, not kill shots. He blocked and dodged the worst of the attacks, but he stopped trying to avoid every cut, every bruise. He let the prince's blade open wounds across his body. He let the blood flow, and he kept fighting. Minutes passed. Tae-soo was covered in blood, his armor torn, his body screaming with pain. But he was still standing, still moving, still fighting. Hyunsuk's face changed. Confidence became confusion. Confusion became frustration. He was hitting the human again and again, and the human would not fall. Die, Hyunsuk screamed. Why will you not die? Humans do not die easy, Tae-soo said through bloody teeth. We come from a death world. Everything there tried to kill us, and we are still here. He saw his opening. Hyunsuk was tired. His movements were becoming sloppy. He had never fought this long, never faced an opponent who could absorb so much damage and keep coming. Tae-soo used the arena. He positioned himself near a column of polished stone. When Hyunsuk charged, Tae-soo stepped aside and directed the blade into the stone, trapping it for 1 precious second. In that second, Tae-soo struck. He hit Hyunsuk's wrist, forcing him to drop the blade. He swept the prince's legs, sending him crashing to the ground. He picked up the fallen blade and pressed it against Hyunsuk's throat. The arena went completely silent. Tae-soo stood over the prince of the Valari Empire, blade in hand, blood dripping from a dozen wounds. He looked up at the emperor, who was watching with an expression Tae-soo could not read. I am not a spy, Tae-soo said. His voice was rough, but it carried through the silent arena. I am just a pilot who made a choice. I saved your daughter because it was the right thing to do. Not for money, not for power, because someone needed help and I could help them. He looked down at Hyunsuk. The prince's eyes were wide with fear. Your son tried to kill me. He poisoned me, sabotaged my shuttle, sent assassins after me, and now he lies in the dirt, waiting for me to take his life. He paused, but I am not going to kill him. He stepped back and dropped the blade on the ground. Humans are not animals. We are not monsters. We are people. We make choices, and I choose mercy. He turned and walked toward the arena's exit, leaving Hyunsuk on the ground. The crowd did not cheer, they did not boo, they simply watched, unsure what they had witnessed. A human had defeated their prince, and then he had spared him. That was something they had never seen before. In the royal box, Emperor Daewon finally smiled. He had chosen well. The days after the trial were strange. Tae-soo spent a week in the palace medical bay, his wounds treated by doctors who now looked at him with respect instead of disgust. The word spread quickly. The human had won. The human had shown mercy. Prince Hyunsuk was exiled the day after the trial. Emperor Daewon had reviewed all the evidence and found the truth. His own son had orchestrated the assassination attempts, the sabotage, and the false accusations. The The punishment for such crimes was death, but Taesu's mercy changed things. Instead of execution, Hyunsuk was sent to a distant outpost at the edge of the empire, stripped of his titles and his inheritance. He left without saying goodbye to anyone. When Taesu was finally released from the medical bay, he found Yuna waiting for him in the garden outside. It was night, and 3 moons hung in the sky, casting silver light across the crystal flowers. "You won," she said. "I got lucky." "You keep saying that, but I am starting to think luck has nothing to do with it." They walked together through the garden. The flowers glowed softly, responding to their presence. Somewhere in the distance, music played. "The wedding is in 3 days, Yuna said. "My father has decided to proceed." Taesu stopped walking. "And what do you want?" She turned to face him. Her eyes were gold, pure and bright. "I spent my whole life doing what others wanted, marrying who they chose, going where they sent me. I never had a choice." She paused. "But now I do. For the first time in my life, I get to choose." "And what are you choosing?" "I choose you. Not because my father commands it, not because of some ancient law, because when I was dying in that escape pod, you came for me. Because when everyone in this palace wanted you dead, you refused to give up. Because when you had every reason to hate my people, you showed them mercy instead." She reached out and took his hand. "I choose you, Kang Taesu, the stubborn human who does not know when to quit." Taesu looked at their joined hands, silver and brown, Volari and human. 2 species that had barely spoken a century ago, now standing together under alien moons. "I have to tell you something," he said. "I do not know how to be a prince. I do not know your politics or your customs. I will make mistakes. I will embarrass you in front of nobles. I will probably start at least 3 diplomatic incidents before the year is over." Yuna laughed. It was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. "Good," she said. "This court needs someone to shake things up." The wedding took place 3 days later in the Grand Cathedral of Saren. It was the largest building on the planet, a structure of crystal spires that reached toward the stars. Every noble family attended. Dignitaries came from 100 worlds. Even Earth sent representatives, including Commander Han Subin, who stood in the human section with tears in her eyes. Taesu wore Volari robes of deep blue and silver. They were uncomfortable and heavy, but Yuna had helped him choose them, and that made them bearable. Yuna wore white, a color reserved for the most sacred occasions. She walked down the aisle like she was floating, her eyes never leaving Taesu's face. Emperor Daewon himself performed the ceremony. He spoke the ancient words that bound 2 lives together. When he asked if there were any objections, the cathedral was silent. Then came the moment for the vows. Yuna spoke first, in perfect, formal Volari. She promised to stand beside him through peace and war, through joy and sorrow, through all the years the stars might grant them. Then it was Taesu's turn. He looked at the crowd. Thousands of Volari, watching him, waiting to see what the human would say. He could have used formal words, careful phrases, designed to impress, but that was not who he was. "I am not good at speeches," he began. "On Earth, we have a saying, actions speak louder than words. So I will keep this short." He turned to Yuna. "You are the bravest person I have ever met. You defended me when everyone wanted me dead. You chose me when you could have chosen anyone. I do not deserve you, but I will spend every day trying to be worthy of that choice." He looked back at the crowd. "My people have another saying. We do not know when to quit. You might see that as a flaw, but that stubbornness is what brought us from caves to the stars. It is what kept me alive in your arena. And it is what will keep me fighting for this woman, for this marriage, for the rest of my life." He paused. "The galaxy thinks humans are weak, primitive, beneath notice, but we are still here. After everything that has tried to destroy us, we are still here. And now, one of us stands beside your princess, not as a servant or a curiosity, but as an equal, as a husband. He took Yuna's hands in his. That is what humans do. We keep going, no matter what. Emperor Daewon smiled. It was a real smile, warm and genuine. Then let it be done, he said. You are wed. The cathedral erupted in sound. Not quite cheering, but something close. Perhaps acceptance, perhaps the beginning of respect. That night, after the celebrations had ended and the guests had departed, Taesu and Yuna stood in the royal hangar. Before them sat Times, the wanderer, asterisk, battered and old, but now upgraded with Valari technology. Are you sure about this? Yuna asked. Your father gave us permission. He said the best way to represent the Empire is to travel it, see it with fresh eyes. He also said you would cause less trouble if you were far away from the capital. Taesu grinned. That too. Yuna looked at the ship. Once, she had thought it was ugly. Now, it felt like home. Where should we go first, she asked. Anywhere, everywhere. The galaxy is big. We have time. She took his hand, and together they walked up the ramp into the ship. The door closed behind them. Minutes later, asterisk, the Wanderer Times rose from the hangar and flew into the night sky. It passed the crystal spires, the floating cities, the moons that had watched their story unfold. Then it reached space, and the stars opened up before it like an infinite road. Inside the cockpit, Taesu sat in the pilot's chair. Yuna sat beside him, in the co-pilot seat she had claimed as her own. You know, she said, when you found my escape pod, I thought my life was over. And now? She looked at him, her eyes shifting through a dozen colors before settling on gold. Now I think it is just beginning. Taesu set a course for the nearest nebula. There were rumors of ancient ruins there, secrets waiting to be discovered. Yuna had spent years reading about them. Now she would see them for herself. The engines hummed. The stars streaked past. And somewhere in the galaxy, a cargo pilot from Earth and a princess of the Valari Empire flew toward their future together. Humanity had sent an ambassador to the stars, not through treaties or politics, through love, and the galaxy would never be the same.